Buckingham Palace have slammed the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle Sussex drama. Trust me when I tell you that Prince Harry is not a well man. This is a man totally overwhelmed by the wacky-backy.
Just when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle thought they were finally walking back into Britain like nothing ever happened, everything starts collapsing, and not quietly, not privately, but in full public view, like a scandal begging to be exposed. Because what was supposed to be a grand, calculated return now feels like a ticking time bomb wrapped in unanswered questions, awkward silences, and whispers that refuse to go away. And the most unsettling part? This doesn't feel like bad luck. It feels like something deeper, something building for a long time.
Trust me when I tell you that Prince Harry is not a well man. This is a man totally overwhelmed by the wacky-backy. Even his holiday in Portugal is designed to go to a place where you can smoke the wacky-backy legally. By the way, Harry, you can't do it in this country. So I'm quite surprised he wants to come back.
Reports start surfacing, and suddenly the entire trip is hanging by a thread. Not delayed, not adjusted, threatened, and the reason? It's not just security anymore that would be too simple. Instead, the conversation takes a sharp, uncomfortable turn towards something far more explosive. Harry's own past, his own words, his own admissions. And now people are asking, were those moments just confessions, or were they warnings we ignored?
A shocking headline in the Mail on Sunday: dismay for the King, as Harry says he may not bring Meghan and the kids to London, having been refused armed royal protection.
And while that storm is growing louder, Meghan is pulled into a completely different spotlight, one that feels almost too perfectly timed. Accusations begin swirling that every headline somehow becomes an opportunity, every controversy a launchpad. And suddenly, the planned return to Britain isn't about reunion anymore. It's about perception. It's about strategy. It's about whether this entire moment is unfolding naturally or being quietly shaped behind the scenes.
Now, this is a shocking setback for Harry. It places the whole trip in doubt, and it threatens to completely derail the Sussexes' efforts to rehabilitate their public image and to re-enter the royal family.
Because this wasn't supposed to be just another visit. This was being positioned as something bigger, a turning point, a possible reset after years of tension, interviews, accusations, and public fallout. The kind of moment where bridges finally start rebuilding. But instead of healing, everything begins unraveling again. And the pattern, it's impossible to ignore. The security battle returns like a ghost that refuses to stay buried. The same arguments, the same frustration, the same sense that nothing has truly changed. And people start asking the question no one can answer without discomfort: if Harry can travel across the world, appear in high-profile locations, stand in front of crowds elsewhere, why does Britain suddenly feel unsafe? Why now? Why this moment? And then comes the shift. Quiet at first, then louder. Critics begin connecting dots that may or may not belong together, but once they're connected, they're impossible to unsee. Harry's past discussions about substances resurface, not as isolated moments, but as part of a growing narrative. A narrative that questions judgment, timing, stability, not facts, just questions. But questions have a way of spreading faster than answers. And the silence from certain corners, that only makes it louder. Meanwhile, behind the headlines, something else is happening. Something subtle but strategic. Meghan's business moves begin overlapping with the chaos. Another launch, another product, another reason for attention to stay exactly where it is. And critics don't hesitate, they claim it's a pattern. That controversy isn't a problem, it's a tool. Supporters push back, calling it coincidence. But the timing feels precise. And that's where this story starts to feel less like a series of events and more like a carefully tangled web. Because at the center of it all is one uncomfortable truth every time Harry and Meghan get close to reconnecting with the royal family. Something pulls them back into chaos. Not once, not twice, but again and again. So is this just bad timing, or is it something else entirely? Because now the stakes are higher than ever. This trip wasn't just about showing up. It was about rewriting the narrative, about proving something to the public, to the palace, maybe even to themselves. But instead of control, what we're seeing looks like something slipping. And just when it feels like the situation couldn't get more tangled, it does, because now the conversation isn't just about whether the trip will happen, it's about why it mattered so much in the first place. Because behind all the headlines, behind the chaos, behind the noise, there's a deeper question echoing louder with every passing day. Was this visit ever really really about family, or was it about relevance? Because let's be honest, every time Harry and Meghan even come close to the royal orbit, the world reacts instantly. Headlines explode, cameras sharpen. Every glance, every gesture, every second becomes a moment to analyze. And that kind of attention, it's powerful, it's addictive. And some critics believe it's exactly what this trip was designed to reignite. But now that possibility is slipping. And with it, something far more valuable than just a reunion. Because without that royal connection, what's left holding the spotlight? That's the uncomfortable tension building beneath everything. Years of interviews, documentaries, deals, and declarations of independence were supposed to create a new identity, a separate path, a life beyond the monarchy. But despite all of it, the biggest reactions still come from one place: the royal drama they tried to leave behind. And that contradiction, it's starting to feel impossible to ignore. And then there are the children. Archie and Lilibet, names that alone can shift headlines globally without a single appearance. The possibility of them returning to Britain wasn't just a detail, it was the emotional core of the entire narrative. A symbol, a moment people were waiting for. But now even that is uncertain. And when something that's significant starts to disappear, the questions don't fade, they multiply. Why build anticipation if the foundation wasn't solid? Why let speculation grow if the outcome wasn't secure? Why create a moment the world is watching only to pull it back at the last second? Because when expectations collapse, they don't just disappear, they turn into suspicion. And at the center of all of this sits King Charles. Once again, caught in a position that feels almost impossible to escape. A father balancing patience with pressure, openness with exhaustion. Reports suggest he's still willing to meet, still open to seeing his son and grandchildren. But patience, no matter how strong, isn't endless. And insiders hint that behind palace walls, that patience may be wearing thinner than ever before. Not because of one moment, but because of the pattern. The same cycle repeating, hope rising, headlines building, then suddenly another disruption, another controversy, another reason for everything to stall again. It's not just frustrating, it's becoming predictable. And then there's William. Quiet, distant, and perhaps the most immovable piece in this entire situation. Because while some doors remain slightly open, others appear firmly closed. And whether officially confirmed or not, the perception alone is enough. This isn't a family ready to reunite. It's a family still divided, still guarded, still carrying unresolved fractures that no public appearance can instantly repair. Which brings everything back to this moment. This fragile, uncertain moment where every outcome carries consequences. If the trip happens, the pressure will be overwhelming. Every move dissected, every word questioned, every interaction turned into global speculation. But if it doesn't happen, the fallout might be even worse, because then the story shifts completely from what will happen to what went wrong. And once that shift happens, it's almost impossible to control. Because here's the reality no one can comfortably deny anymore after everything. After all the attempts to move forward, to redefine, to separate, Harry and Meghan are still being pulled back into the same storm they tried to escape. Not occasionally, consistently. And maybe that's the biggest mystery of all. Is this something happening to them, or something happening because of them? Because right now, it's no longer just about one trip. It's about a pattern that keeps repeating, a narrative that refuses to settle, and a public perception that feels like it's slipping further out of reach with every new twist. The trip may happen, it may not. The security issues might resolve, or they might explode into something even bigger. But one thing is certain, whatever happens next won't stay quiet for long.